What is up? Demetrius, Marcin. Man, I'm gonna have some tough names right off the bat. I wish I had some mats to go with. There we go. Zach, John, Andres, John, Dave, Brandon, Gerardo, Chase. What's up? Harut, Jade, Katarina, Coach Luna, Garfield, Alberto, Robert. What's going on, guys? Happy Monday, and welcome everyone to our first of many, hopefully, weekly hangouts / Q&A. So I'll give you guys, as people are coming in right now, the lay of the land is that we're going to talk a little bit about the leaderboard, kind of a little like commentary, kind of as the games are going on. Think of it like we're now in the box seats of the Hunger Games, if you will, discussing the players on the board and some of the fun stuff that's going on there. We will be talking about the hot group that just fired off the top. I think probably the most MRR that's been generated in a 24-hour period in games history, which is awesome. Anime Shreds and Nate Belmar. I think Luke Belmar is also, I think they're brothers, that run this whole community together. And so we'll be talking about that. And then after that, we're going to open up for Q&A. And so it's going to be very much based on where you guys want to, wherever you guys want to take it. And we'll do our very best to just deliver some val, which is short of value for those of you guys who are new, and go from there. So right off the bat, congrats to the Belmar Bros with Anime Shreds just popping off. Sam, do you want to talk about the pricing strategy? Because I think they had a pretty interesting pricing strategy, and I can talk about the traffic stuff afterwards.
Yeah, this was cool to see. They did, like, if I go to their about page, it's $22 a month now, but they launched it at $11 a month. And that their whole strategy was to tell everyone that you have to join in the next like 48 hours if you want to lock in the price at 11. And that drove like a huge surge of people signing up, because there's obvious like urgency because the price is going to double. But what's also cool about this is it makes it harder to cancel too after the fact, because now if you're in at $11, if you cancel and want to join again, you have to pay 22. So it's pretty smart strategy, honestly.
Yeah, reverse FOMO, or fear of missing out after you're already in. It's like the cover charge at the door going up. You're like, do you really want to leave? But no, great strategy. One of the interesting things that I saw, because I immediately Googled them. And so Luke at least has a YouTube channel that he's got like 400,000 subscribers on. But his last video was like 7 months ago. And so if you then look at, he's super active on Twitter, it looks like. And so he's a big following on X, rather. And if we look at recent stuff for Zagram, which he has a decent following there on. Let's see here, Belmar. I find this interesting because you can see kind of like what someone's posting frequency is. Not that frequent on Instagram either. The last one was like March 11th. And so it looks like this may have been, I mean, the only one that I'm seeing activity on, unless you guys see something that I don't, would probably be, my guess would be email and X. And so pretty interesting. And I think what that does show is the difference, because there's some, so I'll probably dovetail this into my point around influencers in general. So I made a video, if you guys haven't watched it, it's on YouTube, about how to, I mean, a 45-minute presentation for basically everyone in school on how to go through the kind of mega influencer process in depth. So like what messages to do, how to prep for the meeting, how to set up the conversation, who to target, all that stuff. It's, I think my last YouTube video or the one before that, you can find it. But one of the key points that I want to highlight here is the difference between, like, there are some people who have 400,000 subscribers, and then there are people who have an audience of 400,000 people who pay attention to everything they do. And it looks like, based on the buyer activity that they had, the Belmar brothers had, that it was obviously more the latter than the former. And so the amount of authority and influence you have within an audience based on the goodwill that you've generated over a long period of time and how true to the mission that you are and the brand that you're trying to build will dictate conversion over a longer period of time in much higher numbers. And so if you are going to partner with a super influencer, then thinking through like, does this person just get lots of likes? And does this, is this just a, for lack of a better term, a girl that's just showing her butt on Instagram? Or is there something that they have authority over? And so there have been plenty of stories on both sides of the aisle here, of like even some mega influencers. You look at like a Charlie D'Amelio. She started a popcorn line and it didn't really do very well. And on the other hand, you've got like some very niche influencers. So some of you guys know Becker. He started Neo Tokyo, and that's done exceptionally well. And he doesn't have nearly the size audience that the D'Amelio sisters do, but the audience that he has authority with, and they trust him. And so, I think D'Amelio's, I don't think popcorn at all. It just kind of feels like a product they put their name on. And so it's making sure that the community that you're trying to build is also super relevant to whatever the topic of that influencer has authority on and is the greatest value to their audience. So just as a fun one, things to consider when you're making your partnerships, if you're looking at partnering with a mega influencer. But well done to the Belmar bros.
My understanding of the way they launched was to a Telegram group, and a large part of how they grew their audience was going on massive podcasts. So they're great at networking. They go on the big podcasts, and my understanding is they put them into a Telegram group. They're really good at like persuasion. They have a us versus them mentality. They have internal phrases that they use inside of the group, like glitches and if you know, you know. And I also think it's really cool how there's a fitness group. It's been there, done that, most saturated market ever, but they put a spin on it by making it around anime. And now it's all of a sudden a new, exciting, interesting thing.
Super cool. Yeah. So well done to those guys. Really awesome.
I also think one thing they did well is if you look at this page, it's kind of like a video game. Like, when you first join a game and there's some dialogue, like you're maybe talking to some wizard person and they're like, they welcome you and then they give you a mission and things like that. It has that kind of feel to it, which just makes it a little bit more interesting, honestly. Like it caught my attention. Instead of just stating a lot of things you're going to get or value or whatever, it's just more interesting and more fun.
And I think this also goes to show that, contrary to the kind of prevailing belief, you can absolutely make money without having to sell making money, which I think is great too. But I love the angle that they went on with this. It's very cool.
All right, ready for some Q&A?
Yeah, let's rock.
Jamie Atkinson. I see a lot of people selling their higher ticket programs now with Skool as a membership model. My concern would just be about managing churn. I know, Alex, you talked about getting more cash up front, so they're less likely to cancel. Any thoughts on this with Skool in the mix?
So I'll give you a couple thoughts on this. One is if you want to decrease churn, presenting the price overall as a year rather than it's $1,000 month to month will get you a higher commitment, even though it's still the same purchase today in terms of what they have to put down. And so one is I would make sure that I position that way, like, hey, this is a $12,000 thing, but you can pay by paying $1,000 a month or whatever, $999 per month. Just even that little bit change in language will probably get a higher percentage of people to want to stay. Number two is making sure that you're future pacing what's going to happen over that whole period of time and setting the expectation that in 30 days, you're not going to get all of the value because it takes a certain period of time to get some amount of result from whatever the program is. And so both of those things, one is in presentation of price, the other is in terms of scripting around the benefits. And then we've talked about this at the mastermind one day, but for those of you who haven't, if you haven't watched those recordings, for the love of God, watch them. Like they're just mines of gold and nuggets inside of there. But having things that unlock as they get points inside of the community over time will be also something that will both generate more engagement and have something that they can look forward to that's going to keep them in it month after month after month. Those would be my thoughts. I will say, though, that from what we're seeing, a lot of guys are making the flip from selling, call it a 6K thing, and trying to get 6K up front to just selling into $1,000 a month and finding that they're selling 3-4 times as many people as they were before. And so as long as the churn is 20% or less, then you're making 3-5 times the sales and have the same LTV. So you would make 3 to 5 times the total revenue. and arguably because everything would be held in Skool, probably very efficient operations on the back end, or at least much more efficient operations on the back end.
All right, question from Harut. I have a passion for helping people grow on YouTube. Number one, with faceless channels. Number two, with personal brands. Do you think it's very stupid if I do not niche down on just one of those avatars, but have both? Because at the end of the day, they both want to grow on YouTube, although there's some small differences. Currently, we have both types of people in the community, and so far I haven't noticed a conflict. So just wanted to know your opinion on this.
So this is actually one of the big strategic questions that we get into a lot. When like, this is actually one of the most common big strategy questions that happens. It's like, who's the avatar? And so oftentimes it is an iterative process in the beginning. You're like, I'm kind of good at this stuff. And then all of a sudden you start selling, different people, and you're like, ooh, actually, I'm really good at helping these people, not as good at helping these people. And so I look at two big things, and everything comes back to LTV to CAC, which is if I'm promoting faceless channels, or if I'm promoting personal brand, is there one of these things that drives lower CAC? So number one. And number two is, of the people who buy based on that messaging, what's the LTV of those customers? And typically you can reverse that from the amount of value that you're providing them. So if there's some sort of monetary outcome, if you're like, okay, I can help faceless channel people make 3 times the money on average, or I can help personal brand people make 3 times the money on average, or they stay 3 times longer, it all comes back down to LTV to CAC and the total size of the marketplace. And so if I can see that I get really low CAC and the same LTV, and it doesn't affect my marketing messaging, then I will just zero in on the messaging that's getting the lowest CAC. And so everything just comes down to that ratio. But from an operational perspective, I do find it easier to just deliver one result to one very specific avatar, because then everything top to bottom is congruent. Now, I don't know how different the delivery is for those two things. Those seem different, faceless versus personal brand. But that's how I think about it. And we do this with companies all the time. Is like, they're like, I sell to interior designers, and I sell to homeowners, and I sell to builders. And I'm like, okay, well, how much does it cost to get these, and how much are they worth? How much does it cost to get these? How much are they worth? It's like, okay, well, as long as we think that there's enough builders or enough interior designers, enough, realtors or homeowners that I'm selling to, just zero in on the one that has the best LTV to CAC ratio and scale the crap out of it, and then operationalize the back end so that you can decrease operational drag because everything's the same.
It's looking like Sam's reading a funny comment in the chat. I see a little grin.
Meaty questions, though. I'm looking at the chat, the questions that are coming in.
Alex, if you were to rewrite, this is from John, $100 million offers to include what you now know about communities, would you add or rewrite anything?
I wouldn't rewrite anything. I would probably show the value equation differently. So I had, perceived likelihood of achievement, time delay, effort, and sacrifice. But different ways of saying that would just be like speed, risk, effort, or work. You know what I mean? And so you can put those in like, time delay is the negative version, speed is the positive version. Perceived likelihood of achievement is the positive version, risk is the negative version. And so I think I talk about this in leads, but basically drawing out both sides when I'm thinking about benefits. So it's both towards good stuff and away from bad stuff, even though it's the same core element. So speed in a good way, time delay in a bad way. So it's like, if I'm describing messaging, it's like, not time delay, yes, speed. Not effort and sacrifice, yes, ease. Not risk, yes, perceived likelihood of achievement. And so I would use those as bullets in terms of how I'm thinking about my messaging. And you can even put both elements in each of the kind of features or the core features that you want to have, each of the bullets. And I think one thing that I would consider adding, or probably two things I would consider adding, I might have put it in the update, I'm not sure. But one is, if you have a philanthropic angle, you can add that to bonuses. And there's my thumb. I think that adds with conversion. And the second piece is something that Sam and I have talked about at length, and we brought it up at the I think the first Skool Games day meetup for the winners, was that rather than think I want this whole stack to be very valuable, think more along the lines of each individual bullet should be worth more than the entire price. And so most buying behavior, this is my belief, most buying behavior, people are reading, and then there's one of them, they're like, that's what I want, and then they buy. So there isn't this big addition process in their mind that they're like, huh, what is the total value of all these things put together? When you're listening along, you're like, that's interesting, ooh, I want that. And then you buy, and then the rest of the things become irrelevant. And so I think it's more important to have very different, like more segmented, clearly like pays their own rent to be there, like can cover the value, like the value per second of them actually reading the copy, like this bullet is worth it. So even if you give 10 things, you might end up converting more people if you have 4 that are very well differentiated bonuses that each and of themselves explains why it on its own is worth more for a very specific avatar.
Love it. Dimitris, I've been running ads and I scaled my free community from 0 to 200 members in a single day with $15 per day in ad spend. The thing is that no one is posting or interacting or generally doing anything. Most people register to Skool in our group and never come back. This is interesting because generally I see someone struggles to get members. It's like the group just isn't valuable. People don't want to join the group, but this seems as if lots of people want to join, but then they're not getting value or they're not coming back.
Well, is there already stuff that you've put in there? 1, 2, are there things that they can earn by gaining points? And then are you facilitating dialogue in the community? And I don't know what the deliverables are, but I would imagine if you have any element of calls or things like that, that can, like, basically you want to connect with these people. So if it feels like it's faceless, then I feel like you probably want to message the people and be like, hey, welcome to the community. Hey, like I'm having a call tomorrow. Like just, you want to start building actual relationships with these people because it's a community. And so if it doesn't feel like a community, then reverse engineering, well, what is a community? Just like, okay, it's a lot of people who have shared interests. And in order for them to share those interests, they have to share them, right? Which means like we have to communicate in some way, which can first start with private, and they're probably more likely to respond to you because you're the host owner, and then driving them to a place where they can all talk together. So I think, Zoom calls would be a great way to kick things off. And then also driving probably some sort of post in the beginning of like introducing themselves, things like that. So people can actually understand who they are. And then you adding obviously value to the group based on whatever the promises that you gave them at the onset.
Robert Deweese, should I start upping price when I reach a certain number of members or when I reach a certain number of members added per day? What would make more sense for a stable business?
Well, there's the value, like having an increase in price will drive short-term sales for sure, right? Because then a lot of people are going to want to jump in. And to Sam's point, we we're talking earlier about anime shreds. You're also going to be able to retain some people better because they're like, well, shoot, I don't want the price. I don't want to have to come back at the higher price later. So there's benefits from that perspective. But Sam, when does the conversion rate thing go out? Is that already out?
No, maybe in, let me have a look. Like
This is
probably in the next 2 weeks or something.
Yeah. So if it were me, I would wait for the next 2 weeks and not mess with anything. But fundamentally, you're going to want to look at conversion rate times, like if you get 100 clicks to the page and you have a $10 price point and you get 10 people, then you're making $1 a click or whatever, or sorry, 10 cents a click. There we go. Whatever the math is. All right. And then if you do it at 20 and you convert 5%, well, then it's the same. And then you have to ask the question, do the people at 20 stay longer than the people at 10? But if you jump to 20, and this is something that happened with Evelyn, she bumped, and you would know the price point jump that she had better than I would, Sam, but I think she went from 7 to 28 on her community, and she saw almost no decrease in conversions, but 4 times the price. And so a lot of times you have more room than you think you do go on the way up. And so it's worth just testing and seeing, does the conversion rate drop proportionally? In my experience, a lot of times it doesn't. The second order effect you just have to look at is what's the churn as a result. So you might not get, so if you bump the price 2x and you lose 50% and you lose whatever, call it 20% of your conversion, you should totally do that. But then if churn triples, then all of a sudden it's not worth it, right? And so it's both sides. One is the conversion on the front end. The other is the churn on the back end.
All right, David Ritchie. I'm not sure if my community is a product market fit. What is the best way for me to gather data about what the market is looking for? My community centers around helping new bowlers average 200 in their local league.
I mean, I'm gonna revert to Paul Graham special, which is ask people to join. And now one thing that will have the biggest influence on whether an offer works, which is why I covered it first in the offers book, is who you're talking to. So I'll just give you an extreme example. Like if I have a business that does, whatever, grooming for dogs, and it's in Boise, Idaho, and I'm running ads and it's in Miami, to dog owners, it doesn't really matter because those people will literally never buy that service. I use that as an extreme example, but if you don't get like you might not have product market fit because the right market might not be seeing it more than the product is wrong. And so I'd be looking at who I'm getting the message in front of. Like we even recently saw this just as a total like zooming out perspective. I just made a big piece of content of like 35,000 posts in the last 40-ish months, what we learned. But one of them is that wider content is not a product market fit for business owners by and large. And so I was getting product market fit if the product was the content itself with people who are starting out, but not people who are business interested and or business owners. Now people are like, oh, the relationship stuff's cool. Oh, the fitness stuff's cool. But the people who are there because they want to make money were like, well, how's this going to help me make money? And it is 1 or 2 steps removed. And so it's like, okay, well, that's not attracting the right people. Then I need to change the product to make sure that I'm bringing the right people in. And so it's bi-directional in terms of relationship to product market. But the TLDR is make sure the people that you're showing your group and offer to are the type of people who would benefit from this.
John Phyllis, how do you think things will go for anime shreds? Will it be hard for them to sustain the initial boom they've created?
Well, I mean, I think they're going to have more, initial sales because they had a big scarcity thing with a bump in price. But provided he continues to promote it, I don't see a reason why he wouldn't keep, adding members to it over time. I mean, I just got done speaking at a conference of business owners, and if you're under $100,000 a month, like almost all of your attention is going to be on promotion. Like you need to advertise it. You need to let people know about your stuff because like you have 4 levers in this business. You have traffic, you have conversion, you have price, and you have churn. That's it. So if you want to make more money, you've got to increase traffic. You've got to convert a higher percentage of the traffic. You got to raise the price, or you got to get people to buy more times, as in decrease churn. That's it. And so right now you're like, all right, well, if I'm starting out, like you could raise the price tomorrow if you felt like it. Churn is going to be a long-term thing in terms of improving the product and getting it in front of the right people. By the way, getting the right people in the group is one of the most valuable things in terms of decreasing churn. Like if you get moms into the sports league thing, you might have crazy high churn, but if you get people who are really into that, you might have really low churn. And you might think you have to fix your product, but really you have to talk to a better prospect. And the conversion rate stuff is stuff that you can change. Like most of these things are kind of like one-time-ish changes, but the traffic is the one that you have to work every single day. And so it's because it's the one that's the most effort. It's the one that the least amount of business owners do, but it's the one that you need to do the most. And if you're a small business owner, you have the lowest amount of leverage, which means you're going to have to spend the most amount of hours. So I asked this audience of I think it was 850 business owners. I said, who here spends 4 hours a day advertising? No one raised their hand. And I was like, well, then why are we surprised that you guys are not making more money? Like, it's not fun. I'm going to be like, you're going to go insane because you're like, I'm repeating the same thing over and over and over again. But it's also exactly what has to happen. And 4 hours of promotion a day, like if you're running ads, for example, well, Facebook's doing the distribution of message, but what you're working on is I need to learn how to edit videos better. I need to learn how to edit photography better. I need to do research on what ads are converting right now. I need to write different scripts for my ads. I need to write different scripts for the copy, right? These are all other adjacent types of work if you're running ads that you'd be spending all your time on, right? And making sure the metrics are tracking out. If you're making content, it's scripting out content. It's thinking about topics. It's thinking about hooks and learning how to edit that so that when you post it, it actually does better. Like all of these things, like if you are below $100,000 a month, like the first 4 hours of my day are advertising. It's promotion. Because if you want to figure out if you have product market fit, you have to market. Now, once you get people in the door, then you can start tweaking stuff and making sure, like if everyone immediately cancels month 1, then that's obviously a problem. And either you're showing to the wrong people or the stuff sucks. Sometimes it's both. right? But at the very least, if you know, at least you're showing this to young dudes, you're showing this to moms, and it's a mom thing, and it's like, okay, well then I do need to fix this. This becomes the constraint. But you will literally never know unless other people know that you exist. And so advertising gives you the data so that you can keep fixing stuff. And as much as this sounds like it sucks, you have to keep promoting, even though you know it's an inferior product, so that you have the reps and the flow going through the system so you can iterate and actually improve it. Otherwise, you have no way to know. And also that goes for everybody who's in the procrastination cycle of like, I have to get it perfect. You're not even going to know. Like it's, I mean, Sam will probably riff on this more than I can, but like, you think that this is what someone wants and you're just wrong. Like so much of the time. Like even this call is like a perfect example. We were like, we're doing opening ceremony and closing ceremonies. We're like that'll be really sweet. And it turns out what you guys wanted was Q&A. And so that's what we're doing. Right. But like, we didn't know that at the onset. We found out because you guys told us. And we wouldn't know if we tried to guess. Like we spent all this time up front being like, putting a ton of infrastructure into the game, opening and closing ceremonies, only to find out quickly that that wasn't the most valuable thing we could do.
Wish I could react with emojis. There would be a lot of emojis there. Sam, I remember in your training, you referred to Sally in trying to figure out what people want. Do you remember what that was about?
Yeah, well, are we talking in terms of like product market fit? Yeah. So first of all, you'll never get it right on your first go, like ever. No one's ever done that in history. So you have to start. You can't figure it out in your mind, right? And then you only really figure out one little piece at a time. So you, like, okay, we got that wrong, let's fix that. Okay, we got this wrong, let's fix that. And you iterate slowly towards there over time. And the other thing is that you really just need to talk. Most people, I swear, have this problem where everything's just a thought experiment. They sit down and they try to think about what they think people want. And then they make what they think people want. And then they think why people aren't wanting what they think that they want, right? And they're never leaving their own head, which is insane. So like, I can't tell you how often like my problems have been solved by just getting on Zoom with someone who's in my target market. I still do that to this day with Skool, like designing the product. Like surveys are not a substitute for that. Even a post and a poll. Sometimes people ask me, why don't I do more polls? Because polls, you already give them 4 predefined answers, and people tend to like form a consensus, so it like forms a bias pretty quick, right? I'm more interested in the open-ended, long like answers, or a lot of the time, what I even got on the call trying to find out, my main insight was something I didn't even know that I needed. So it comes from like proper one-on-one conversations, in person, on Zoom, stuff like that. And I swear everyone's just like, they've got some weird block to actually just talking to a person. It's amazing how many problems you'll solve if you just talk to your people in your market and hang out with them. Yeah.
I want to emphasize one thing really hard, which is that no one has gotten it right on their first shot, ever. And so the only thing you can do is start knowing that the thing that you have is not good enough. Like just the idea that it's going to be right is just a complete fallacy and a total waste of time. Which is why we're saying, get 3 people in your group, talk to them. And if you're having an issue with conversion, by the way, which hasn't been brought up, but it definitely is a problem because it's one of the 4 levers for some of you guys, offer to hop on a call. There's a bunch of winners from the first 1 or 2 that they just hopped on a call with everyone. So they DM'd and they got on call and they basically sold the value of the group. And when you do it that way, especially in the short term, you actually get some of that feedback from customers really quickly. And so the sales call actually doubles as research and revenue generating. And so if you want like the quickest hack in the world to making sure that the group, you're like, oh, well, Alex, that doesn't scale. Well, dude, you have no members. Shut up. Like Like, just like Sam, it doesn't scale that you still talk to customers. Like, yeah, duh, but knowledge scales. And so like get the information, and generating revenue is never a bad idea, especially if you have none.
So good. TJCOPLE. I'm a musician documenting the process of growing my brand and business. Want to have a community dedicated to sharing resources, and I will share content inside about what I'm learning. What is a good way to position myself, as I haven't yet made it myself?
Well, I think it's great to just be honest. Now, I don't know if you're planning on making it free or making it paid, but I think that might be one where it makes sense to do more free in the beginning and share the stuff as it goes. And then people, like, if people keep bringing more and more people in, then you'll get that group, and then you can over time start a second group that's a paid group. That would be one strategy that you could do, especially if you haven't done this before. Because if you haven't done it, then you have to go like super hard on value creation that you're gonna have to work very hard for. And so I'll give you kind of two hypothetical extreme examples. So on one hand, I can say, I sold my company for all this money, listen to me because of this, right? Cool. That's an evidence based on an accomplishment in the past. On the other hand, I can use evidence of labor or work that I've done that gives the prospect or gives the audience a deal on their time. And so fundamentally, if you're in the information business, which everybody here is, or media, you're trying to give someone a return on their time. You're trying to shrink the amount of time they have to spend looking so that they can find more per second faster. Like, that is fundamentally what education is. Like, you don't have to learn it on your own, because right now, everyone already has all the information they need. They can Google it. They literally have Google. They have everything they need is a Google search away. What we're doing is we're curating the information so that the time they spend looking versus the time they spend achieving the result they want is shrunk. We're selling time. That's fundamentally what we're doing. And everyone wants a bargain on their time. Like, every business in history that shrinks time makes money. So if you're somebody who doesn't have the accomplishment that you can lean on to say, hey, everything I tell you is true, then you have to go prove with your time all the things that don't work, so that they don't have to spend their time to find out it doesn't work. And so I'll tell you a little story to drive this home. So at Gym Launch, one of the things that we did was we do these R&D projects. So every 14 days, we'd run 50 grand in ads across a bunch of different cities to find out which ads worked best. Or we'd run a split test, or we'd on landing pages or headlines, or we would run a different sales process, or we'd use a different phone script, right, with 10 or so representative gyms in different markets to see, hey, does this work better? And so originally, when I thought of doing this, I was like, I'm only going to share the ones that, show an improvement. I don't want to waste anyone's time. But guess what happened? Again, it's kind of like one of those Sam things. People wanted to know just as much the things that didn't work, because then in their mind, they're like, oh, it's almost like I didn't have to go and suffer that pain of wasting the money on that headline that didn't work, or wasting, effort on getting that show up process that was a little bit different that didn't work. And so they got just as much value from the experiments that failed as the ones that won. And so if you're going to be the reporter in the situation, just documenting you doing a ton of work and then showing them the results, some of it will work, some of it won't, but both of them are value add to them because it's work they don't have to do.
Eddie Eisen, thank you for assisting us. Appreciate your energy. My question is, don't we need to build an audience before start offering free or free trial or launching a school group? For example, you just started posting 2 months ago, and now you open a community when you're just building followers.
All right. So how many different ways are there to let people know about stuff, right? So one is you can let people know one-on-one who already know you. So right now you already have contacts in your phone. You already have emails in your email address. You have 200 followers. Like, everybody here who's a human being has an audience. It might not be huge, but everyone has an audience. So square one, or first step, is that you can reach out to the people you already know. The second way is you get more people to know you, which you make through content, right? The next step is that you can run ads. The fourth way you can do it is that you can get affiliates, or you could partner with somebody who already has an audience. Those are the paths that have been proven right now in terms of getting people into the community. And so right now, like, I think at our last one, 4 of the 10 people who came did outbound as their primary method of building their communities. They did outbound to phone call to sell them in. That's what they did. And so there's definitely not one size fits all. You don't have to have an audience. There's a handful of guys who didn't have an audience at all. It was actually one of from the one day that just happened. one of the guys was like, no one knows who I am. He had a B2B offering that was super niche for like makeup stuff, like makeup B2B, like people who manufacture makeup. And so he just did email to phone call into his community. And so the TLDR is no, you don't have to build an audience in order to start a community. You can do any of those methods. If you want to do that though, there's nothing wrong with that. You just have to extend your time horizon. That's all it is. Also, as a side note, this is for everybody who's listening. I just made a post earlier today about this, but I think it's worth saying is that if you're at zero, if you're like, I'm just getting into this, I want to start making, my first dollar online. I honestly think that the first thing I would do is look at my bank statement from last month, look at my credit card statement from last month, and find $99 of what you spent last month that you don't have to spend this month. That is it. Because you want to have time to breathe. If you're like, I have to make money in 14 days and I'm starting at zero, there are guys who've done it. Don't get me wrong, you can immediately start reaching out to people and you can generate the money to do it. But if it were me, if you were my little brother, I'd be like, dude, save $99. Just every business. And I was on with Harley, who's the CEO of Shopify. He gave this analogy I thought was great, which is that like in the 1930s, his grandfather had to go to a bank after 10 years of saving to get a loan to go open a bakery. And if that bakery didn't work, that was it for him. His reputation would be ruined. He'd have to file bankruptcy. And that was it. And that was the only way to start a business. That just is what it was. Nowadays, you can start businesses for almost nothing, but most businesses still cost something. Even the homeless guy on the side of the street has to have a marker, and he has to find cardboard, he has to write it on there. And so either he steals it from someone or someone gives it to him. But either way, it costs resources. Now, a lot of it in the beginning is going to be your time. You're going to make up for that. But something like Skool, something like Shopify, whatever, like there are costs that are going to come in to running a business. Even Stripe is going to take fees for processing money. So unless you're standing on a public street corner, only accepting cash, just shouting at the top of your lungs that I don't know what you'd be selling, right? There's going to be costs that you're going to incur. And so I would say, be smart, be prudent, buy yourself an unlimited runway by just saying, what's an investment of a nicety that I currently did that isn't making me money, that I don't want to sacrifice my dream for making money in the future by having. So it's like, I can go out twice a month to eat lunch, or I can actually get this business going and stay in this community and keep learning. Like, to me, the question's retarded that like people even ask this, but I have to be really clear here. Save the money so that you don't have to think, so you can actually extend your time horizon out and think a little bit more than 14 days. Ranting.
We've gone from very tactical, let's get philosophical. James Frey says, what is the point of making money? How do you pump up your reason why to drive hard at progress, besides money for money's sake?
This is like the end of all the one days that we have. It's like the last 90 minutes of all of our days is like, what is life? Listen, I don't have the keys to the universe, so I'm going to put that as my big disclaimer before I answer this question. Everyone has different reasons for why they do things. I believe that motivation comes from deprivation, which is like you are thirstiest, or so you want water the most when you're thirstiest. You want a bed the most when you're the most tired. You want food the most when you're starving. And so the thing with money is that you need to be starving for money. Now, one of the problems is that for a lot of people, what their number for starving is very different, because by that theory, you would then presuppose that poor people should be the most motivated to make money. But that's not the case, because since money is a construct, how much money you want, the discrepancy between where you are and how much money you have is actually what creates the deprivation. And so some of the most money-hungry people I know in my life are some of the richest people I know. So there's a friend of mine who runs a massive company. He's probably worth $3 or $4 billion. And I swear to God, when we were at dinner, he was like, Alex, I just need more money. And it was so genuine. He was like, I just need more money. The guy's 37. Like, he's very rich. Like, probably does $100 million a year in cash flow to himself personally. All right. He's like, I just need more money. And he said it, and it was so alarming to me to hear him talk like this, because that it just kind of reinforced the concept. Now there are some poor people talk like that, but when they do talk like that, as long as they pair it with action, they don't stay there long. But the thing is that what satisfies them sometimes is only 20,000. And then once they're there, this happens a lot with salespeople. They have a certain income that they want to make, and then after that, they've satisfied their need for making money. And so my question back to you, whoever asked this, is why do you think making more money has to be a goal to begin with? So the question is, how do I get motivated to make more money? Why do we need to even have that question to begin with? If you're content with the money that you're making, that's awesome. You won. Congratulations.
Katharina Lewald, I'm thinking about pivoting from my 3.5K group coaching program to a monthly membership. I see advantages and disadvantages, and I don't know how to make a decision. I don't want to do huge launches anymore. Could you give me some thoughts on how to make a decision? Who do you think a membership is right for? All
right, this is a great question. So I'm gonna use the old-fashioned So Ben, who's our managing director of investment at acquisition.com, uses this. He says, "You asked me a question that can get answered with an equation." All right, so do the math. And so the easiest way to do this is, if you believe, like, the easiest thing to do is just test it. Get on the phone, and instead of selling what you normally sell, offer this. And I was going to pull up Alberto, who I think is #2 in the all-time. He stumbled into this. So I'll tell you Alberto's story really quickly. So Sam knows him way better than I do. So Sam, please fill in the gaps on this. But Alberto's been in the same space for insurance agents, helping them make more with their insurance business for a really long time. And I think he sold a 10K product. And he was on the phone trying to buy another product, and they asked him for 10K. And he was like, I don't want to do it. And they're like, oh, I'll do a payment plan for $1,000 a month. And he was like, oh, sure, fine. And going through that process as a customer made him think, I wonder how many people are not buying my thing because I require all the payment up front. And so he wanted to unlock the one-day recordings. And so he said, all right, well, I'm just going to sell 3 people into my Skool community at $9.99 per month. I'll just use it as a downsell for somebody who can't afford the 10K. And so he did it, but the sale was so easy and so fast that he sold way more people than he normally did. And then he stuck with it. And so he didn't know, kind of like probably the theme of this call is like, you're not going to know unless you try, is get on the phone, talk to 10 customers the way you normally would pitch. But at the end, instead of pitching the 3.5, pitch whatever the price point you think makes sense for your community from a continuity perspective. I don't know how long the 3.5 is for. Maybe it's $500 a month. Maybe it's $9.99 per month, whatever. And then see if they like it. And if they take it at a higher percentage, or it's an easier sale, or it feels better, then all you do is you do that for a month, you start generating revenue, and then you basically make the transition from the existing customers in, and you can give those guys a deal.
Jamie Atkinson, sneaky second side question for Sam. Why did you decide to get investors in Skool versus just funding it yourself?
Because I couldn't fund it myself. Too expensive. Yeah.
Do you remember how many Ferraris you could get if you decided to spend your money on Ferraris instead of engineers?
I don't remember exactly, but I think it's like hundreds. Yeah. No, it's just a funny joke that I had, like, when I was younger, I used to think of, like, I really wanted a Ferrari when I was like, 12 or something. But now I just want software engineers. And the funny thing is they cost a lot more than a Ferrari. Yeah.
And it's recurring.
Yeah, I know. It's like many Ferraris recurring all the time. Yeah.
Harry Mann, do you have any techniques to use to creating a good initial course?
I feel like this is a group panel answer on this one. I will just say, we have thought a lot about what we've put inside of Skool, and even more about what we've chosen to not put inside. And so I think that there is a lot of wisdom in deletion. And so I think Blaise Pascal has the famous letter of, sorry, my letter is so long. If I had more time, I would have made it shorter. And so I think, like with Gym Launch, for example, even though it wasn't a course per se, there was a lot of licensed materials. And so every time we had a 2.0 or 3.0 version of it, what we do is we'd actually just try and make it shorter. So everything was, okay, if we think about the value equation we were saying earlier, how do I make it faster? How do I make it easier? How do I make it less risky or risk-free for them to get the dream outcome? And so all of the effort that, like, it's not about putting more in. And so switching the perspective from seconds of value to value per second. We want value density rather than absolute total amount of value. Because I hear this all the time in, like, on the one days that we hold with the winners, is people are like, dude, there's so much value in my community. But there isn't, because you have to have someone has to, they're like, I have 700 calls from the last 3 years that are in there. But is someone going to spend 700 hours going through all those calls? Probably not. If you curated those calls into 14 hours of the stuff that they actually need, it would be significantly more valuable, and it would be less total hours. So the idea of bragging about how much stuff is in there, I think, is a complete waste of time. It's about what's the value per second that they're getting, and does that value per second translate to the outcome that you promised? And so everything that I would do if you're trying to make a quote course is being really clear on what outcome I'm going to deliver. And so I'll tell this quick story because I think it's worth telling, which is my favorite information product I ever bought was a course on scaling Facebook ads. And at the time I was spending, I don't know, 5,000 a day, something like that. And I bought this course, it was $700, and it's 9 years ago, so don't ask me what it was. And so when I got in, I logged into the members area, and there was only one video. There's literally nothing else in the entire members area. One video is 42 minutes long. And I was like, oh my God, did I just get completely scammed? Like, what happened? I watched the 42 minutes and I understood exactly what I needed to do to scale my Facebook ads. And that day I followed the steps in the video and I scaled my Facebook ads and kept the same ROAS. And I was like, wow, that was the most valuable thing that I've ever bought, because I immediately got ROI from the investment. And I immediately, point one, got ROI, point two. So the speed that if it had taken me a month to get through it, I would have seen the course as less valuable, or I would not have even gotten the value, because I would have given up too soon because the value per second was too low. And so if you're going to do it, think about how few things you can possibly include that are going to get the person from where they are to wherever they want to go, and cut out everything else.
Nicholas Giopo. My IG grew from 0 to 150K in 100 days. I'm building a weight loss community around sustainable weight loss. I lost 110 pounds and kept it off for 5 years. I've established trust with my audience. The plan is for there to be a 12-week sustainable weight loss program with 5 masterclasses around emotional eating, etc. There's many eyes on me, and I'm sure I'll put a lot of traffic, but I'm struggling with differentiation and exactly defining the value of the community itself. I find myself getting lost in the weeds of also wanting to add workout plans, etc. But the reality is I don't have all of these built out. Any advice on how I can differentiate in a saturated market?
Yeah. So in the fitness world, I do have some experience with this. If you look at, I would try and, even though on some level you probably don't want to hear what I'm about to say, if you look at the most successful fitness programs of all time, you look at 75 Hard, you look at Whole30, you look at P90X, they had a very defined outcome for a period of time that applied to many people. And having that be the system, even though you want to have all of these different things that you want to add into it, putting more around the simplicity of getting the result for these people. And then a lot of the brand differentiation is just going to come from your personal brand. And so fundamentally, personal brand plus commodity equals new product, right? Like fundamentally, Feastables is chocolate. It's it's chocolate bars. Like they're different wrapper. That's literally all it is, right? Sure, Jim's put a bunch of effort into making the chocolate better or whatever. But when he launched it, it wasn't better than the majority of the other ones. It only was better than Hershey's, which is a very low bar, right? And so the idea is that if you have a lot of people who already know, like, and trust you, then they will make the selection because they know, like, and trust that your thing is that you're going to put time into making it good. But I think making it good is coming from all the things we were just talking about, which is make it as simple as humanly possible. And that is actually what takes time. Like making the books go from 1,000 pages to 200 pages for a topic that's really wide is very hard. But doing that, people can appreciate the amount of work that goes into it. Skool looks simple. It takes a ton of time to make things intuitive. It'd be really very easy to have 9 menu screens that you have to go through to get to wherever you want to go. What makes the iPhone so revolutionary is that babies can figure out how to do it without knowing anything. And that takes work. And so I think when we're thinking about what you want to build in your weight loss community, I don't think you need to have some sexy different method. Like calories in, calories out is going to be what it is, right? But it's going to be the access to you being there in terms of answering questions, the values that you stand for, that community is going to be about. Those are going to be the things that differentiate, because people come for the bikini and they stay for the community. And so that was a saying we had in the gym world. And I will almost guarantee that it's going to be the same thing for you.
Motage, if you wanted to hit 0 to 100K a month in 30 days, how would you do it with a price point of $100?
It was, how do you, sorry, say it again.
0 to 100K in 30 days, how would you do it? Price is $100.
So you need to have, what is that, 10,000? No, that's 1,000 users. So you need 1,000 paid users. I actually wrote a post that just details exactly what I would do here, which is if you have to do something in 30 days, then you're not going to have time to build a personal brand. And so the only two things that you're going to be able, I guess there's 3 strategies you could do. If you already have a very valuable skill, then you can go outbound B2B and you can sell 3 people a day at $1,000 a month. So you could do that. You would be working 12 hours a day, but you could go outbound. And I think last month, what's his name? Sean was at like 50-ish thousand. And he did that all in 1 month, all off of outbound with a B2B offer. So you just work twice as much as he did fundamentally, and you'd make 100 sales. So that's option 1. Option 2, if you're, so that's, well, you said $100 a month. So I guess that one's out of it. But that would be a way to do it. The other 2 ways is that you either have to leverage someone's existing audience or you leverage Facebook's existing audience. And so you either spend money on ads and you're driving it and just making sure that you make more than it costs you to get a customer and you just crank, which is Evelyn has whole posts on how she's running her ads right now. Or you just find somebody who has a big audience. Like you find a Luke Belmar and you say, hey, how can we make this work? Like those, like if you have to do it in 30 days and you have $100 the price point, that's pretty much your option. You tap into Facebook's marketplace and you buy your customers, or you buy your customers by doing a split of the upside with somebody who already has it.
It's funny. The question was, how do you get from 0 to 100K in 30 days? I scroll up. The next question is, I want to hit 100K MRR in 14 days. What would you do?
Same thing half the time. I want to hit 100K in 5 minutes. All right, well, then you just need to get the biggest influencer in the world to send an email for you. Like it's fundamentally, again, you've got traffic. So if we're thinking about these levers, right? You got traffic, you got conversion, you got price, and then you've got churn. Churn's not going to matter because it's 1 month. Price, you already said was $100. Conversion, you're going to work on the page, but like you're going to have your first shot, and that's going to be about, you're not going to be able to iterate that many times in that period of time, which means the only thing that you actually have control over is going to be your traffic. It's literally it. And so the questions that everyone asking is, how do I get to 100K in X period of time? When it really should be, how do I get the most traffic? And then if you ask the right question, the answer becomes obvious. You have to go to somebody who already has traffic, or you got to spend a ton of money on ads if you have that condensed of a time frame.
Jesus Hernandez, what do you guys think about helping someone out with their community and running your own one as well? Is it doing too much together?
I'm a big fan of focus. So either like you want to go all in on your community and learn and keep, basically, I'll put it this way. There's a reason that your community isn't growing as fast as it could. And you taking on the other person is just going to distract from solving that problem. And so unless your long-term business model is, I actually want to shift to having lots and lots of groups that I'm managing, and I'm going to go into a growth operator model or whatever, unless that's your long-term strategic vision for your life, this sounds like a short-term cash grab because it's convenient. And so I would solve the problem of why is my group not growing? Now, if the person who approaches you, like there's a calculus here, like there's always going to be risk. Like if The Rock approached you and said, hey, you want to do a group with me? I would say you should probably forgo your group, because how long is it going to take you to get that level of traffic? Again, we're just quantifying this. Well, it would take me a zillion years or I'd never get there. Okay, well, in that case, it might be worth getting 5% of The Rock's group, right? And so you basically have a risk-adjusted return spread across time of how likely is it that I'm going to be able to get to this level of growth or traffic that this person's going to offer me, divided by the amount of equity or the amount of ownership I have in the community. And if that over the long haul is greater than your existing thing at its hypothetical max, then it makes sense. If they're just like twice as big as you are, unless that's going to be your long-term strategy, getting 20 of those people, then solve the problem in your own business and then ignore everything else.
Ryan Duncan, Sam is unhinged at time and it's the only reason I stay on Skool.
Is that a question?
Eric, can you give tips on launching a waitlist? How to make an influencer Skool launch with hundreds in waitlist really effective so people rush to get the first 100 spots and price goes up?
I mean, I think it's going to be exclusive bonuses for the first 100 and I mean, I think just like, think about it like this way. If I can get more stuff for less money and there's only 100 of them, then that alone, that offer alone will drive the majority of the demand, provided the thing that you're giving is really good. As a side note, this is actually kind of interesting. So in the gym world, what's very common is that people will have founders pricing for their first X number of members. And usually the founders pricing is to cover their fixed costs, like to cover rent or cover rent plus payroll or whatever it is, so that the gym can at least not be losing money. And so if you think about that from your perspective, you're probably willing to do some more things to decrease your downside. Like I'm willing to take, 10 groups of 10 people, or one day a week, I do a call with, I do 10 hours of calls. Fine. So you have to give one day a week up so that you can get 100 people at this price to make sure that all your personal needs are fulfilled. And you can always just keep that, which is like, if you have people at that, that, let's just call it $200 a month and $100 a month, whatever. You then take somebody from the $200 a month and plug them in if you ever lose one of those 100 spots. And so you can always keep it capped at that amount. And then that basically takes care of your personal needs or your base business needs. And you just say, I give one day a week in order to make sure that all these things are not my concern. And the other 6 days a week, I spend trying to grow everything else.
Shen, I have 2 creators that I'm building communities for, collected about 9K in 4 days. I have another creator and a few others that are in the pipeline. I do actually want a handful of communities under our belt, unlike the last guy. What's the big thing I may slip up on when scaling, and where do I focus on increasing leverage first?
So I would spend, if you want to go the volume approach, you have to become a very good operator. So that's going to be where all your effort is. And I'm going to be real with you. If you do this right, there's no lack of demand. The amount of people, like we talk about this internally at Skool, like the amount of large influencers who want to monetize with people, like my inbox is full of them because they're like, Hormozi, can you help me start a community? I'm like, dude, I can't, like, I'm not an agency. I don't do it. Right. But the thing is that if you just do a great job, like the best agencies in the world, almost all ironically, just grow off word of mouth. And so I would spend a disproportionate amount of time on the first 1 or 2 communities that you're doing, so that you want to drive down to 0 and then scale 0. So let me add a little bit of color to that, because I think it's important. And this actually happens in all business owner world. People get their first business going to a certain level of income, and they spend a lot more time on it than they think they do, because they spend all their waking hours thinking about it, even though they're not necessarily doing it. They're like, no, I've outsourced it. I'm working 2 hours a week. But if they disappear, the business dies in 3 months. So no, you didn't outsource it. You just aren't directly working on the business. Congratulations, you got out of the day job. Now you're in strategy. Now you're in leadership. That's still absolutely a role that every business needs to have. It's the reason that most businesses can't sell. It's valuable, and it's arguably the most important. And so what you have to figure out is, you need to get it so that the groups continue to grow and maintain the quality while you're working almost no hours. Once you can do that and maintain it, growth and quality, both those metrics paired, then you have systematized it to a degree that you will be able to get more people in without having to scale yourself, right? And so you want to drive all your work to 0 so that when you bring all these other ones on, you're scaling 0. You're not adding more work because you already have the systems in place. The amount of time it takes to do this, people dramatically underestimate, which is why most people scale too quickly, and then they get stuck, and then they increase their overhead, and then all of a sudden they just do this for the rest of the time. They have to pedal water and barely keep their heads above because they added people who weren't skilled enough. They didn't have enough systems in place. And so now they can't take more people on, and then their word of mouth goes down because they're not actually doing a good job, because they got too greedy too fast.
All right, final point. Lovely call, guys, from Eric. Can't believe we get $100 to Hormozi to answer personal questions that we have. And for everyone whose questions I didn't answer, Monday, 2 p.m. every week, you'll get a chance.
Appreciate you guys. Post in the community if this call was good. So next time we get even more juicy stuff, juicy nugs. This, as a side note, you posting there lets us know that we should do more of this. So let us know.
See you,
Thanks,
bro.
guys. See ya.
Bye.